My daughter's fiancé leaned across the white linen tablecloth, adjusted his silk tie, and slid a manila envelope toward me like we were closing a real estate deal. "Sign these tonight," he said, keeping his voice low enough that the string quartet wouldn't be interrupted, "or you'll never see Rebecca again." I picked up my wine glass, a 2019 Napa Valley Cabernet that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget, and took a slow, deliberate sip. Then I looked him dead in the eyes and smiled. "You miscounted," I whispered. The confidence drained from his face like someone had pulled a plug. He opened his mouth to respond, but I was already standing, smoothing the front of my dress, a simple navy blue piece I'd found at a consignment shop in downtown Portland. "Excuse me," I said pleasantly. "I need some fresh air." I could feel his stare burning into my back as I walked toward the vineyard terrace, my low heels clicking against the flagstone. He had no idea what was coming. None of them did. The October evening air hit my skin as I stepped outside, carrying the scent of crushed grapes and oak barrels from the valley below. Harlow Vineyards sprawled across 40 acres of prime Willamette Valley real estate, every inch of it manicured to perfection for my daughter's engagement party. 200 guests mingled among the barrel room and the outdoor pavilion, sipping complimentary wine flights and nibbling on artisanal cheese boards that cost more per platter than I earned in a shift. I wasn't thinking about the party, though. I was thinking about a night 14 years ago, when my daughter was 8 years old and I made the decision that would define both our lives. Marcus had been gone for 3 days that time. The longest stretch yet. His truck wasn't in the driveway, his side of the closet was half empty, and there was a charge on our joint account from a motel in Bend, 150 miles away. When he finally stumbled through the front door at 2 in the morning, reeking of cheap whiskey and someone else's perfume, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the lights off. "Don't start," he said before I could speak. I needed space. I didn't start. I'd stopped starting months ago. But Rebecca was standing in the hallway in her pajamas, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 3, watching her father step over the boots he'd kicked off and collapse on the couch without acknowledging either of us. She looked at me with those enormous brown eyes, and I saw something that shattered me. Not confusion, not sadness. Understanding. She understood that this was just how things were. And in that moment, I decided it wouldn't be. The next morning, after Marcus left for wherever Marcus went, I packed one duffel bag. Rebecca's school clothes, her rabbit, our documents, and $412 in cash I'd been hiding inside a hollowed-out copy of Little Women on the top shelf of the pantry. Every spare dollar from the tips I earned cleaning rooms at the Seaside Inn, squirreled away over 11 months of planning. "Where are we going, Mommy?" Rebecca asked as I buckled her into the back seat of our rusting Honda Civic. "Somewhere better," I told her, and I meant it with every fiber of my being, even though I had no real plan beyond driving north until I reached Portland, where my cousin Diane had a spare bedroom and a willingness to help. That spare bedroom lasted 6 weeks before Diane's husband made it clear we'd overstayed our welcome. I found an apartment on the east side of Portland, a third-floor walk-up above a laundromat that vibrated gently every time the industrial dryers kicked on. The kitchen faucet dripped constantly, the radiator clanked like a ghost was trapped inside it, and the windows were so thin you could hear conversations from the sidewalk 3 stories below. But the lock on the door worked, and nobody hit anyone inside those walls, and that was enough. I got hired at the Riverside Marriott as a housekeeper within a week. The pay was barely above minimum wage, but the hours were steady and they let me pick up overtime on weekends. After my shift ended at 3, I'd race to pick up Rebecca from the after-school program at Woodstock Elementary, make her dinner, help with homework, then change into my other uniform for my evening job answering phones at a 24-hour veterinary clinic until midnight. The sofa in our tiny living room became my bed. I'd unfold it every night after tucking Rebecca in, my back screaming from 8 hours of stripping beds and scrubbing bathtubs, and I'd set my alarm for 5:45 to do it all again. But between the exhaustion, there were moments that made everything worth it. The afternoon Rebecca came running out of school waving a paper with a gold star on it. "I got 100% on my spelling test, Mommy. Every single word." I swung her up in my arms and spun her around right there on the sidewalk, and she laughed so hard she got the hiccups. We celebrated with ice cream sandwiches from the corner store, $1.79 each, sitting on the bench outside and watching the sunset turn the clouds pink. "Someday," I told her, licking melted chocolate off my thumb, "you're going to do something incredible. You're going to have every opportunity I never had." Will you be there when I do it? She asked. Every single time, I promised. I kept that promise through middle school and high school, through the awkward years and the difficult ones. Rebecca was brilliant. Not just smart, truly gifted, the kind of student who made teachers stop and pay attention. She won the state debate championship her junior year, graduated valedictorian, and earned a partial scholarship to Oregon State University for their business program. The day she got the acceptance letter, she danced around our small apartment in her socks, sliding on the worn hardwood floors. I'm going to college, Mom. Me. Can you believe it? That night, after she fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table and did the math on a napkin. Her scholarship covered 60% of tuition. The rest, plus room, board, books, and living expenses, came to roughly $14,000 a year. I made $31,000 combined from both jobs. Our rent was $1,100 a month. After utilities, groceries, insurance, gas, and the minimum payments on the credit card I'd used to fix the Civic's transmission, I had maybe $200 left over each month. The math didn't work. So I made it work. I picked up a third job, weekend catering prep at a banquet hall in the Pearl District, chopping vegetables and washing dishes from 6 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon every Saturday and Sunday. My schedule became a blur of name tags and uniforms. On the rare weekends Rebecca came home from campus, I'd hide the dark circles under my eyes with concealer and the rawness of my hands with lotion, and I'd take her to our favorite diner for pancakes like nothing had changed. Mom, you look tired, she said once during her sophomore year, studying my face across the booth. Just busy, I said brightly. Tell me about your marketing class. She did, her eyes lighting up as she described a case study about building a brand from nothing. I listened and smiled and didn't mention that I'd worked 22 straight days without a break. The shift was subtle at first. Junior year, Rebecca joined the university's entrepreneurship club and started spending time with a different crowd. Wealthier students, kids whose parents owned businesses and vacation homes and drove cars that didn't make concerning noises on the highway. She came home less often. When she did visit, she'd glance around our apartment with an expression I'd never seen before, something between embarrassment and impatience, as if the place had shrunk since her last visit. The first time I noticed her actively hiding me was at her senior showcase, a presentation event where business students pitched mock companies to local investors. I drove 90 minutes to be there, wearing my best blouse and the pearl earrings Diane had given me for my 40th birthday. Rebecca spotted me in the audience and her face did something complicated. She didn't wave. After her pitch, which was phenomenal, a polished concept for a high-end catering company targeting corporate events, she introduced me to her professor as a family friend. Not her mother, a family friend. I smiled and shook the professor's hand and didn't correct her. On the drive home, I pulled over at a rest stop and cried for 15 minutes, then blew my nose, checked my mirror, and kept driving. She was building a life. That's what I'd wanted. If the architecture of that life required minimizing me, well, maybe that was just the cost of her success. Rebecca graduated summa cum laude and immediately began turning her class project into reality. Sterling Catering, she called it, high-end corporate events, product launches, private dinners for Portland's growing tech elite. She had the talent, the connections from school and the vision. What she didn't have was capital. The call came on a Tuesday night at 11:15. Mom, I found the perfect commercial kitchen space on Division Street. The landlord needs first and last month plus a security deposit by Friday. And then there's equipment, licensing, initial inventory. She rattled off numbers that made my stomach drop. How much total? I asked quietly. $83,000. I closed my eyes. My retirement account, the one I'd been contributing to faithfully for 14 years, even if it was only $50 or $100 a month, sat at $74,000. Combined with my savings account, I had just enough. Barely. I'll have it for you Thursday, I said. The silence on the other end lasted 5 full seconds. Mom, that's everything you have. Not everything, I said softly. I still have you. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already called my friend Janet Chen, a paralegal at Morrison & Associates who I'd helped through her divorce years ago, letting her stay in our apartment for 2 months when she had nowhere else to go. Janet had drawn up partnership documents. I'd hold 55% silent ownership of Sterling Catering. Rebecca would be the face, the operator, the creative force, but the legal structure would protect us both. Rebecca signed the papers at Janet's office without reading past the first page, too excited about securing the kitchen space to care about the fine print. "This is just a formality, right?" she asked, already texting her supplier contacts. "Just protection," Janet said carefully, glancing at me. "For both of you." Sterling Catering launched 4 months later with a modest opening event, finger sandwiches, sparkling cider, and hand-printed menus. I stood in the back and watched my daughter work the room with a natural grace that took my breath away. She'd gotten her charm from Marcus, I suppose, but she'd gotten her work ethic from me. The first year was brutal. Rebecca worked 16-hour days, often sleeping on a cot in the kitchen. I quietly covered 2 months of rent when cash flow ran short, never mentioning it. But then came the break. A tech startup's CEO hired Sterling for their product launch, posted about it on social media, and suddenly Rebecca's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Within 6 months, Sterling Catering was the hottest name in Portland's corporate event scene. Within a year, she'd expanded into a second prep kitchen and hired a team of 12. The first time she erased me from the story was at a Portland Business Journal interview. I was reorganizing the supply closet when I heard the reporter ask, "So how did you build all this so quickly, fresh out of college?" Rebecca laughed that confident laugh she'd perfected. "Honestly, just relentless hustle. Nobody handed me anything. I started with nothing but a dream and a willingness to outwork everyone." I stood very still behind the shelving unit, a case of napkins in my hands, and felt something inside me crack. Not break, not yet. Crack. Like a windshield hit by a pebble, holding together but fractured in a way that would only spread with time. I pulled back after that. I stopped visiting the kitchen during business hours. I reviewed the financial statements Janet sent me each quarter, handled paperwork in the background, and let Rebecca have her narrative. It was easier that way. Less painful to be invisible by choice than to be erased against your will. Then she met Tyler Ashford. He appeared in her life like a weather system, sudden and consuming. Son of Gerald Ashford, who owned a chain of luxury boutique hotels across the Pacific Northwest. Tyler was 34, square-jawed, impeccably dressed, and possessed the kind of easy confidence that comes from never having been told no. Rebecca was smitten within a week. I met him at a dinner she reluctantly arranged, and within 10 minutes I understood exactly what he was. His charm had a transactional quality. Every compliment calculated, every question designed to extract useful information. "Rebecca tells me you work in hospitality," he said, swirling his wine. "I'd been a hotel housekeeper for 14 years. "Technically accurate, that's right," I said. "Interesting industry," he replied, already looking past me toward someone more important. Over the following months, I watched Tyler reshape my daughter like clay. He encouraged her to rebrand, to target higher-end clients, to drop the smaller accounts that had been Sterling's bread and butter. He introduced her to his family's network, opening doors that came with invisible strings attached. Her calls to me, already rare, became almost non-existent. When I tried to voice my concerns, she shut me down hard. "You don't understand his world, Mom. Tyler is helping me reach a level you can't even imagine." "I understand enough to worry," I said. "Worry about yourself," she snapped. "I'm doing fine." The engagement announcement came through Instagram. No phone call, no visit, just a professionally photographed image of Rebecca's hand displaying a ring that could have paid off my apartment's lease for 3 years. The caption read, "She said, yes, can't wait to be Mrs. Ashford." I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I called Janet. 2 weeks before the engagement party, I stopped by Rebecca's new condo unannounced, hoping to discuss the event and maybe, foolishly, to reconnect. She wasn't home, but the door was unlocked because the cleaning service had just left. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But her laptop was open on the kitchen island and the screen showed a spreadsheet titled Transition Plan. My name was in cell B4. I sat down and read the entire document. It was organized with the same meticulous attention to detail that made Rebecca brilliant at her job. Phase 1. Pre-wedding. Maximize Grace's financial contributions while managing expectations about her role in the ceremony. Suggested approach. Assign her minor tasks to maintain feeling of inclusion without actual visibility. Phase 2. Post-wedding. Begin restructuring Sterling Catering ownership to remove silent partner. Tyler's attorney to handle. Timeline. 6 months. Phase 3. Year 1. Gradual reduction of contact. Holiday cards, Occasional calls. Position as natural growing apart rather than deliberate distancing. The final note, highlighted in yellow, was in Tyler's voice. The key is making her feel grateful for whatever access we allow. People like her don't push back when they think they're being given a gift. I read it twice. Then I closed the laptop, left the condo, drove to Janet's office, and said 4 words. It's time to prepare. Janet didn't ask questions. She'd been watching this unfold for years, dropping hints I'd refused to hear. Now I was ready. Over the next 2 weeks, we built our case. Every unauthorized investor Tyler had brought into Sterling without my knowledge or consent. Every contract he'd renegotiated to benefit Ashford hotels at Sterling's expense. Every dollar diverted from the company into what appeared to be a failing restaurant venture Tyler was hiding from his own family. You could end this right now, Janet said during our final meeting. Send a cease and desist, freeze the accounts, take control of the company tonight. Not tonight, I said. I need to see something first. What? Whether my daughter will choose me when it matters. Even once. The Harlow Vineyards engagement party was Tyler's production from start to finish. 200 guests, a 15-piece band, a raw bar that stretched 20 feet long, and enough flowers to fill a funeral home. I arrived alone in a taxi, wearing my consignment shop navy dress and the pearl earrings from Diane. The valet looked uncertain about my vehicle before remembering there wasn't one to park. Inside, I was seated at table 22, tucked behind a structural column near the service entrance, surrounded by people I didn't know and who showed no interest in knowing me. Rebecca found me 40 minutes in, already flushed from champagne and attention. "Mom, you made it," she said, offering an air kiss that landed somewhere near my left ear. "You look fine. Try the crab cakes, they're from Tyler's family's supplier." Then she was gone, pulled away by a photographer arranging group shots I wasn't invited to join. The confrontation came 2 hours into the party. Tyler appeared at my table with 2 glasses of wine and that practiced smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Grace," he said, settling into the empty chair beside me. "Having a good time?" "It's a beautiful venue," I said carefully. "Must have been expensive." "Worth every penny for the woman I love," he said smoothly, then leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Which brings me to something we need to discuss." He slid the manila envelope across the tablecloth. "What's this?" I asked, though my pulse had already started hammering. "A simple ownership transfer agreement for Sterling Catering. Rebecca and I have decided it's best to consolidate the business under our family name before the wedding. Less complicated for taxes, estate planning, all that." I didn't open the envelope. "And if I don't sign?" His smile tightened. "Grace, let's be honest with each other. You invested some money years ago, and Rebecca has turned it into something extraordinary. You've gotten a good return on your little contribution. But going forward, having a hotel maid listed as majority owner of a company serving Fortune 500 clients is frankly embarrassing." He paused, letting that land. "Sign the papers, and we'll write you a check for $40,000. A nice thank you for your early support." $40,000, I repeated. For a 55% stake in a company valued at $2.3 million. Something flickered in his eyes. He hadn't expected me to know the valuation. Additionally, he continued, recovering quickly, "We'd appreciate a contribution of $75,000 toward the wedding. Rebecca mentioned you have some savings." "Rebecca knows exactly what I have," I said quietly, "because she watched me earn every penny of it." "Sign these tonight," he said, dropping the charm entirely, "or you'll never see Rebecca again. She's already agreed to it. This is a courtesy, Grace, not a negotiation." That's when I picked up my wine, took that slow sip, looked him in the eyes and said, "You miscounted." I walked out to the terrace and sat on a stone bench overlooking the vineyard rows, silver green in the moonlight. The October air was sharp and clean, and for a moment I just breathed, letting go of the fantasy I'd carried for 14 years, the one where my sacrifice would be recognized, where my daughter would look at me with gratitude instead of calculation. I pulled out my phone and texted Janet 3 words, "Light it up." Her response was immediate. "Packages delivering now. Legal team standing by. Are you okay?" "I will be," I typed back. Inside, the dominoes began to fall. A courier service, prearranged and punctual, arrived at the venue's entrance with individually addressed envelopes for Gerald and Diane Ashford. For Tyler's business partners, for the 3 unauthorized investors he'd brought into Sterling, and for Rebecca herself. Each envelope contained a different selection from our evidence file, customized for maximum relevance to the recipient. Gerald Ashford's package included documentation of his son's failing restaurant venture, funded entirely with money siphoned from Sterling Catering without the majority owner's authorization. The investors received formal notice that their agreements were legally void, executed without the required consent of the controlling partner. Rebecca's envelope contained the simplest document of all, a formal letter from the majority owner of Sterling Catering announcing an immediate operational audit and the suspension of all financial activities pending investigation. I watched from the terrace doorway as the elegant party began to fracture. Gerald Ashford's face went from confusion to fury in the span of 30 seconds. He crossed the room toward Tyler with the focused intensity of a man who'd just discovered his son had been lying to him for months. Tyler's phone started buzzing. Then Rebecca's. Then half the lines in the room, as Janet's team sent automated notifications to every contact in Sterling's business network. Rebecca found me first. She came running in her heels, mascara already starting to smudge, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "Mom, what is happening?" "I'm getting emails about audits and frozen accounts, and I exercised my rights as majority owner," I said calmly. "Your majority." The color left her face as the realization hit. "The papers I signed when we started the company, the ones you didn't bother to read," I confirmed. "Because you were too excited. Because you trusted me. The way I trusted you." Tyler stormed out behind her, his composure completely shattered. "Whatever you think you're doing, you have no idea who you're dealing with. My family will bury you in litigation." "Your family," I said, nodding toward the barrel room where Gerald Ashford was now shouting into his phone, "seems to have their own concerns at the moment. Something about their son embezzling from a go company he has zero legal stake in to fund a restaurant that's $300,000 in debt." The silence that followed was the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. "Mom," Rebecca whispered, tears cutting clean lines through her foundation. "You have to fix this. Everything I've built, everything we built," I corrected gently. "Everything I funded with my retirement, covered with my savings, protected with my name on the paperwork you never cared about. The company you told reporters you built from nothing. The success you said nobody handed you." She flinched. "I didn't mean you did," I said. "And that was your choice. But trying to steal my ownership and cut me out of your life, that was Tyler's idea. And you went along with it because it was easier to erase me than to explain me." Tyler grabbed Rebecca's arm. "We can offer more than the $40,000. Name your price." $100,000. $200,000. I shook my head slowly. "This was never about money, Tyler. That's something people like you never understand." I looked at my daughter one last time, memorizing the face I'd protected and provided for since she was 8 years old, dancing in her socks on our worn hardwood floors. "Some things, once broken, stay broken," I said. "I hope what you've chosen is worth what you've lost." I walked through the murmuring crowd, past the raw bar and the 15-piece band that had stopped playing, past the flower arrangements that suddenly looked like funeral wreaths. Nobody stopped me. At the vineyard entrance, Janet was waiting in her sensible Subaru, engine running, passenger door already open. "How do you feel?" she asked, as I climbed in. I thought about it honestly as we pulled away, the vineyard's lights shrinking in the side mirror. "Light," I said. "I feel light." Janet drove us through the valley in comfortable silence. She'd already begun the next chapter on my behalf. A small event planning consultancy. Just me and 2 former Sterling employees who'd quietly reached out after witnessing how Tyler treated the staff. Nothing fancy. Nothing that required pretending to be something I wasn't. Just honest work for honest people, built on a foundation that belonged entirely to me. I never looked back at those shrinking lights. I'd spent 14 years giving my daughter everything I had, my money, my health, my pride, my future. Now, for the first time since that rainy night when I packed a duffel bag and drove north with $412 and a little girl who thought we were going on an adventure, I was building something for myself. And it felt like the most natural thing in the world. If this story of a mother who finally said enough had you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Grace whispered you miscounted at the engagement party, knowing everything she'd quietly built was about to come to light. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. And if you don't want to miss more stories like this one, subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss an upload.